Okay, so as I've said, Microsoft Office is a suite of products, a suite of programs that are designed to accomplish and to facilitate office tasks. What do we mean by office tasks? Presentations, diagrams, uh, calculations, writing, all things of this sort. Okay, so the first program we're gonna take a look at is Microsoft Word. Who can tell me what Microsoft Word is used for? None of you have any idea what Microsoft Word is used for?
It's used for making documents, sir.
Exactly. For making documents. All sorts of documents. Okay? Be it letters, memoirs, books, any type of document that is written can be produced using Microsoft Word. Okay? So, let's start by launching Microsoft Word. How can we start the program? We have two ways of starting the program. Okay? Now, if you click on the Windows key on your keyboard, this brings the Windows Explorer menu, yes, and you can type or search for any files, programs, any sort of thing you have on your computer. Okay, so for example, look, I've typed in just about two letters and it auto completed to Word, meaning that this is the app I'm using frequently. That starts with WO. Okay, and then it highlights Microsoft Word on the top of the screen. Okay, now I can click once to open Word, or I can just find it in my desktop. Okay, right here. This is the shortcut of Microsoft Word. Okay, double click this shortcut and we have Microsoft Word open. Okay, now this welcome screen, notice that we have different templates with which to work with. Okay, we have different templates. Preferably we don't need them, we won't need them. We will start our session or our demonstration with a blank document. Okay, but before that, notice on the left of the screen we have the recently opened documents. Okay, recently opened documents. Notice here it says yesterday, older. Okay, we can also open other documents. When we click on this option, it brings us to this menu to open other documents. Okay, shortcuts to other folders on our PC. Also click on browse. This browse button brings the Windows File Explorer. Okay, now using this Windows File Explorer, we can locate different files on different locations of our computer. Okay, for example, I've selected this one. Okay, it opened this document. Okay, let's exit out. Let's reopen Word with the first way. Okay, using the first way. Now let's choose a blank document and begin the demonstration. Okay, now we have a white canvas, white paper, and the cursor. The cursor represents the location in which you will start typing. Okay, now I can write anything. For example, good afternoon, and for example, let's try. Let's try and make an error. Now notice it highlighted the word that I made an error in red. Now if I right click here, it presents me with some suggestions uh, that it thinks I meant. Okay, some suggestions. I meant to say good. Now the mistake is corrected. Okay, it has auto detect. Okay, it detects words that it thinks you mispronounce or misinterpreted, and it gives you suggestions. You can ignore them if you haven't made an error. You can ignore these suggestions and carry on with writing your document. Okay, but first of all, let's talk about these tabs that we find at the top of the screen. These tabs, each tab groups similar settings related to the same function. Okay, what we mean by that is, for example, the insert tab groups all the options related to insertion. Insertion meaning adding external or adding stuff to the document. Okay, for example, we can add tables, we can add pictures, we can add smart art, charts, screenshots, um, as does the layout tab, as does the reference tab, and the rest of the tabs. Now, starting with the file tab, this tab now represents, just a moment. Now, starting with the file tab, it gives us some infos about the products. Or we can start a new document right from the on the file tab. We can open existing documents like we've seen earlier. We can save the document, or we can print it. Okay, these are the main functionalities that the file tab gives us. Okay, so functionalities related to the file itself, what we do with the file, information about the file, creating a new file, opening an existing file, saving the changes made to the file, saving the file if, for example, I opened a blank document. This blank document, if I exit out of Word, I wouldn't be able to find this document because I haven't saved it yet. Okay, we can save it just by clicking this option right here, save as. Okay, just a moment. So this concludes the file tab. Later we will go in depth in what it does. Okay, the most important tab is the home tab. Okay, because it groups the most essential options for us. Okay, for example, here we have the font type. the font type, meaning the style, we will be writing in. Okay, for example, this here we have Calibri. Okay, let's try and write something. Okay, let's increase the size of the font because so it becomes more clear. Okay. Okay, now if for example I select this text, I can change the font type. Okay, let's try Times New Roman. Let's try another one. Notice the changes are applied in real time. It gives me a preview of what the changes will look like. Okay, as I scroll through the font types. Okay, let's go back to our original font. Notice what I've done is I've selected the text that I want to change, and then I applied the changes. Okay, if for example let's say I didn't select the text, notice that when I change the font type, it doesn't change the text that I've already written. Okay, that's because I've changed the font type, but I didn't select the text that it should be applied to. Okay, if you guys have any questions, do not hesitate. Okay, if everything is clear, we can continue. Now on to the next point. If for example now, as I've said, I've written good afternoon, let's write another word. Okay, let's change the font type and then try to write. Okay, let's use Arial black. Let's write everyone, for example. Notice now it changed the font type for the word I've written. That's because I've changed the font type before I've written this word. Okay, before I wrote this word, I changed the font type and then I wrote this word. Okay, now if I want a different font type to be applied to everything, I have to select the text, click here and drag across, right, like this. Now I can apply a unified font for the entire text. Okay, like so. Is everything clear? Is anybody having trouble understanding what we're doing here? Just a tip, maybe you aren't aware of this, but you can write messages. For those of you who can't speak, you can write messages right here. Okay, so let's move on. Now we've seen the font type. Okay, the next to it, right next to it, we have the font size. Okay, we can change the font size like so, and the same thing applies. Now if I change the font size, notice that it doesn't change the size of the text that I've already written, but any text that I write from here on out is enlarged because I've changed the font size. Okay, if I wanted to change the size of this text right here, I have to first select the text like so and then choose the appropriate size. Okay, now Here, this big A and little a, what they serve is they are kind of like shortcuts to increasing and decreasing the font size, okay? So that we don't have to choose from this drop down menu, okay? Just a moment. Okay, so right under this we have this B, I, and U. What do they represent? Is B is short for bold text, as you can see here. The I is for italic, italic meaning it's like this here, example. And underline is self-explanatory, okay? Now we can cross the text by selecting the text and then clicking on this cross, strike through, see? Now we can use different art styles for the text. For example, here, if you click on this A here, it brings down a menu, and you can choose a style or text effect from this menu, okay? For example, like this. And we can also color everything like so, or change the text color like so, okay? This A changes the only the text color, but this this AB here changes the color of the area in which the text is written, okay? Now you can, if you, for example, you made mistakes, you can undo the changes you made by clicking going this button, okay? Undo text fill effect. Notice it gives you a preview, it gives you an explanation of what it does, okay? So the last thing I did is I selected the text fill effect, okay? Now if I go back, it returned the text to its original color. I can keep going back like so to undo any changes that I've made, okay? This is a useful tool for you to when you write your memoirs, for example. Keep this in mind, okay? Now on to the next thing, which is, for example, bullets. What we mean by bullets, bullet points, like so. For example, let's say I have a list. Let's say I have a list. Let's say I want to make this list. I click on this bullet list, okay, and I can choose the appropriate style if I click on this downward arrow, okay. This arrow allows me to choose a different style from this regular plain old point right here, okay. This dot, we can choose square, we can choose any style we want, okay, or we can use the default, which is just a dot, okay. For example, let's write in first. Notice what I've done here is I've written the ST above the one, okay? I've used this one, superscript. We have also subscript, okay? For example, if I deactivate this, the st is written as simple text. Okay, now let's select this text and click on superscript. Okay, first is the appropriate way for the superscript to be written. Okay, let's go back. Now notice when I use the line break, it gave me another the option to add another element to the list. Okay, now what comes after first, second? Okay, and then third, for example. Now we've completed the list, for example, but when I use a line break, it adds another element. Okay, so what we do here is we deselect the list. Okay, we do a line break and then we select the list. Okay, now under we have also the option of a numbered list. Okay, numbered list. For example, let's select the list here. And click on the numbered list. Now the list is ordered. Okay, now when I use a line break, it goes back to the next element, which is we have the first element, the second, the third, and then the fourth. Okay, and like the regular list, we can choose different styles with which to write this list. Okay, we can use simple numbers with parentheses, Roman numerals, ABCs. Okay, now let's delete everything, and now let's check these options right here. Okay, the alignment options. Okay, the default is align left because we are using the English version of Microsoft Word. If we, for example, were using the Arabic version, the default will be align right. Okay, because we start writing from right to left. Okay, now we can choose to align it in the center. Okay, uh, for example, notice if when I switch from one option to the other, the cursor moves. Okay, now for example, let's say I want to write a title, the title of the document. The title should be centered. Okay, now the how I would go about that, for example, I will change first the alignment and then increase the size of the font. Okay, 24 is 26 is okay. Okay, and then choose bold. I use the appropriate font for our title and then write the title. For example, okay, now let's say I want it underlined. Okay, let's select it and then underline it. We can also choose different styles with which to underline our document. For example, let's choose this double line right here. Okay, now when we use a line break, notice it the cursor goes back to the second line, but it's still in the center. The font is still large, and the text is still in bold, and it's still underlined. Now, will we go about this? We deselect the undesired changes. Okay. Now I went back to the left alignment. Okay. Now let's decrease the size of the font and write our document regularly. Okay, let's make some more space, and now we can write whatever we want. Okay, let's change the font, for example, back to Calibri. Okay, and now we can write regular text. Okay, do you have any questions before we move on to the next part? Is everything clear? Okay, so now we've seen the basic options in the Home tab. Okay, let's go to the Insert tab. Now the Insert tab groups all the options related to inserting either external stuff in the document, or, for example, like this option right here, page numbers. We can enumerate our document. Okay, now for example, we can insert shapes here. Okay, for example, here we have shapes, draw a shape. Now when we click on the drop down menu, now it gives us a lot of options to choose from. For example, let's choose a rectangle. Okay, notice here my mouse cursor became a plus sign. Okay, now the way you would go about when drawing a shape is you click and hold and then drag across. Okay, we drag across the shape until it's the appropriate size. Okay, now notice here I have multiple points that appear. Okay, whenever I hover over them, the mouse cursor becomes a two-headed arrow. Okay, now if, for example, let's grab one of those edges, for example, we can resize the rectangle as we like. Okay, by clicking, holding, and then dragging across. Okay, we can also rotate the rectangle by grabbing this circle right here and then rotating like so. Okay, and now, for example, just a moment. Okay, so for example, if I want to change its position within the document, I can grab inside the shape. Okay, go inside the shape and then click, grab, and drag. Okay, we have this four-way arrow right here. When the four-way arrow appears, it means that we can grab the shape and reposition it as we see fit. Okay, okay, so here let's select the shape. When we select the shape, notice it automatically goes to the Format tab. Okay, here we can change the shape fill, meaning the fill color, okay, it gives us a preview if we go across the colors like so, just plain white. Okay, we can change the style, we can change the outline shape, okay, the color of the borders of the shape like so, and we can add, for example, let's right click here, we can choose add text. Okay, we can add text to the shape. Okay, now the reason you can't see the shape is because the shape is white in color and the color is above the shape. Okay, or it's the reverse actually, the shape is above the color. Okay, so now to fix this we choose a different theme style for the shape like so. For example, let's choose this one. Now the shape is transparent, it isn't white. Okay, previously we've chosen the white color. The white color, we can't see the text, we couldn't see the text because of the color of the shape. Okay, now the shape has no color and the text is now apparent. Okay, so here, for example, we seen how to insert a regular shape. Okay, we can insert more shapes by selecting the shape, and then dragging across. Here's a different shape. Okay, this is an arrow, for example. Now, for example, I can group multiple shapes together so I can move them more appropriately. Okay, if for example I don't want this arrow to move from this side of the rectangle, if I want them to move at the same time, what I do is I click Control on my keyboard, select a shape, and then click on another shape. Now they are both selected. I right click now when I selected both shapes. Now I can click on group. This groups the two shapes into a single one. Now notice when I drag across here, it moves the both shapes together. Okay, the position of each shape relative to the other is unchanged. Okay, so this is beneficial when you when you create diagrams. Okay, you don't want the arrows and the components to move independently of each other, so you group when when you're finished creating the diagram, you group all the shapes you used to create this diagram to a single group, and then you reposition, you edit anything you don't like. Okay, now, let's say I want to reverse this. I click on the group and then I right click here, for example, go to the group option and click on ungroup. Okay, now each shape, well, now if I select a shape, one of them, notice it moves independently of the other. Okay, so the shapes are not the only option for insertion. Okay, we can insert pictures also. Okay, let's for example choose a picture from this computer. Okay, For example, this flag here. Okay, let's delete the shapes first. Now that we've deleted the text, now we've inserted a picture, for example, and now when we select the picture, it has the same options as the shapes, almost the same options as the shape. Okay, we can resize the picture like so, we can rotate it like so, as we can reposition it by clicking here and dragging. Okay, like so. It will be more apparent if the picture was smaller. Let's try it now. As you can see here, like so. Okay, so now let's, for example, go back to the insert tab. We can choose this option here, online pictures. It brings us a search bar. Now we can search for pictures relating to a topic that we are writing about. For example, let's say we're writing a history document about the German Empire. Okay, notice here we have the search results for the German Empire. Okay, let's choose one of these pictures, whichever is more appropriate to the subject, and we click on insert. Okay, it downloads the picture and then it inserts it. Now the reason it did a page break, it inserted a new page, because the picture itself is large. Okay, now when I resized the picture, I made it smaller. Now it went back to the first page. Okay, so let's go back to the insert tab and let's try, for example, some smart arts. Now we can use smart arts list process. For example, smart art, we can, for example, a list. What smart art is a grouping of multiple shapes. Okay, so if you can find what you're looking for in a smart in the smart arts, it will be less time consuming than trying to create the appropriate diagram using shapes. Okay, it's like we say, a sort of shortcut. Okay, so we've seen smart arts. Okay, now we can even insert videos in the later versions of Microsoft Word. Okay, here insert links. Now what we have here is headers and footers. Headers and footers, notice now, if I go back to the top of the document, notice that the top of the document isn't the top of the page itself. We still have space above it. Okay, this space is called the header, and right in underneath in the end of the page, it is called the footer. Okay, we can change the style of the header. Okay, we can choose a style here, like so. This is the first page, and here we have the footer. Okay, let's close this here, go back to the insert tab and choose footer. Okay, you can choose a style for the footer. Okay, as we can remove header to go back to normal, and let's remove the footer also. Now we can go to page numbers, top of the page or bottom of the page. Preferably you will insert page numbers in the bottom of the page. Okay, like so. This is the first page, and now we close the header and footer. Now when we, for example, let's insert another page, for example a blank page. Okay, or let's do a page break. Oh, the reason why it did that, because the cursor was here. Okay, let's insert a page break right here. Now the second page is number 2. Okay, as you can see here. Okay, what time is it? Oh, okay, so let's stop right here concerning the lesson. If you guys have any questions, feel free to